Joining me now on the phone is Ohio Congressman, and he's Dr. Brad Wenstrup. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. Your reaction, that's quite a reversal there with the Imperial College of London, sir.
Yeah, it really is. And it's one of the reasons why I have not been out talking about numbers that come from a lot of these models, because there's so many things involved here. Because if there are numbers of what you might expect and that may be coming down the road, keep in mind what we're trying to do is fall way under those numbers and taking the actions to do that. You know, one of the problems that we have with prevention is you can never really measure it. We know how many die. We don't know how many may have been saved by prevention. I think George Bailey in Wonderful Life is the only one who got to see what he prevented in this life. But, you know, you talked about the data, and that was very important. It's important that it be accurate. And it's important that we understand when we're looking at numbers, were there other underlying conditions that were part of this problem? And we need to look at how things are geographically and where they are. And certainly it's good to try and predict where things might be headed. But at the same time, we have to understand the negatives so that we can proceed positively and proactively and not chaotically. So that's why I try to stay away from those numbers. I read those models, I see them, but I take some of them with a grain of salt and understand that what we are trying to do, and Ohio has been very aggressive, is make sure those numbers don't come true.
Right. So, you know, also to what you just said, the Imperial College of London also now says that more than half of the expected, it's terrible to talk in this way, more than half of the expected fatalities in the UK, he's saying 20,000, that they may have passed away anyway, even without COVID-19, because they're very sick. And, you know, it's interesting, 99% of the fatalities in Italy, those cases had pretty bad pre-existing conditions. But, you know, what's really also interesting, too, is Neil Ferguson, the author of that Imperial College study. He also is saying it's impractical to lock down for a year or 18 months because it would slam the economy. It would destroy the public health system you need to help people. And he said you're going to be paying for decades to come if you make that decision. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, and that's, you know, these are challenging times, and no one's taking any of these deaths lightly. I think the president answered it correctly when he was asked how many deaths are acceptable, and he said none. But the fact of the matter is that, unfortunately, some people are going to pass from this, and I do worry about secondary effects if we have things shut down for so long. You know, one of the terms I don't like is when we say that, oh, those who have essential jobs can go back to work. Well, if you're not in one of those jobs, does that mean you're not an essential type of worker? And so it's how we say things. And we also have to be concerned about people being able to get their regular care. And so if we slow everything down to the point where everyone's in poverty, how are they getting to doctors? How are they letting their health stay up to a level that it should be? And then all of a sudden you have more and more people that are weak and more people getting sick. So it's that fine line, and it's not easy. But it's a big part of it. But listen, we're learning a lot in this whole process, so that I hope that in the future we will be prepared. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I want to give some, a ray of hope, some optimism here. Oxford University is saying that they are estimating that anywhere from 40% to 60% of the UK population is already immune, that we may be in the late stages of this pandemic. That's why you need serology and blood tests to see about antibodies and immunities. And Dr. Fauci is confident that many people may have immunity now. So, you know, he's also equating it to the 1968 Asian flu outbreaks back then. So there's a lot of estimating going on. But your take on antibodies and immunities, there seems to be some hope there.
Yeah, so I've been looking into this deeply with several other doctors and researchers, and some of this stuff isn't really new. It's just a matter of bringing these ideas around. But, you know, as we make decisions, we have to look also at the state of treatment, which is, I think, what you're talking about. What are some of the rescue drugs? You know, is the hydroxyquinoline able to help people or maybe prevent them from needing a ventilator as they're on their road to recovery? But also taking a look, and these are things that we can do now, at other diagnostics like CT of the lung, and also some of the blood work we can look at whether a patient's weight count is dropping, which it does with this. There's a substance called IL-6 that can be a good marker to see where people are, but also where they are with building up the antibodies. What we do know is that IgM is one of the immunoglobulins, and IgG. IgG is what's used ultimately from someone who has recovered for the convalescent plasma that you've been hearing about, that Mount Sinai is using some of that. And I would like for all of our communities to get set up and be prepared to have the data of knowing who had it and who has recovered so that we could harvest that tool.
Interesting. Congressman Brad Wenstrup, thanks for joining us, sir. Great to see you and great to have you on.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.